All right. It's Jemima, the connection coach, and I am here to talk to you about speaking your truth in the early stages of connection. I know the title was While Dating, and I just hate that phrase so much. It's so it's so American, and it's so it's a shorthand. It's a shorthand for what I'm talking about. What I want to talk to you about is when you're first connecting with someone with a view to creating a relationship with them, how do you speak your truth? How do you really convey the realness of who you are? And do it in such a way that you're not forcing this kind of fake intimacy, not rushing into anything. I've got some notes here because I want to stick to the main points because I always go off on a tangent. So what I want to help you with is communicating with clarity, being able to manage your internal experience. So everything that's firing off in your body or your nervous system stuff, and helping you to stay open while maintaining boundaries. Because what can happen in this scenario is that you just mow over your own boundaries or your body signals in an attempt to retain the connection. And we don't want to do that. Okay, so how do we do all those things? Communicate with clarity, manage our state, and stay open so we don't shut down, but we still maintain our healthy boundaries. Well, I'm going to tell you some of the problems, and these are some of the things that I've done before, for sure. And I know that other women do as well. As an antidote to feeling discomfort, sometimes we reduce ourselves. So we try and make ourselves smaller. We don't express fully. We don't let people know who we truly, truly are. And that often can come from like old fears of abandonment or just not wanting to be rejected or all such human characteristics. And not even just in the world of romance, but in the whole of life, because we are pack animals and we do need to know that we're safe and we need to know that we're not at risk. And sometimes behaviors develop that will almost guarantee that we'll remain safe and we won't get rejected by the tribe. This is the ancient part of us. Because had that happened in past times, it would have meant certain death. There would be no safety outside of the tribe. So it's very natural, is what I'm saying. Like, I just want to really normalize it. Like, yeah, of course you're going to do weird things sometimes in order to feel like you are being accepted and that people like you and that you belong. And there is no differentiation in the world of romantic partnerships or dating or whatever you want to call it. It's the same human behavior. So sometimes we can reduce ourselves if we perceive some kind of risk of like, oh, they're not going to like me if I show them all of me, or they're, I will get rejected, or I will be abandoned. So sometimes we reduce ourselves. Sometimes a way that we can do this is by staying quiet when normally we would say something. So if we were in an existing relationship, maybe with a friend that we did feel safe with, and that we had evidence of it being a reciprocal relationship, then we would not stay quiet about this particular thing. But when we meet somebody new, sometimes we do. And sometimes that can be to such an extent that it turns into the fawning response, which is part of the nervous system's response to threat. So fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So we can fawn, which is basically making ourselves likable so that we are not hurt or rejected or abandoned. That's a problem for obvious reasons, which I'm going to talk about the results of these behaviors in a minute. The third thing that, and I have definitely done this, is that we will kind of brace ourselves, and almost that position of closing your eyes, and we just thrust the truth at someone. Just be like, here you go, this is me, this is what I'm about, these are my feelings on the matter. And it comes out kind of clumsy, it comes out almost aggressive. And with the bracing position, we're completely closed. So we're like pushing our truth out. In a way, it's like it's a flip side of wanting to be rescued, because when we do this, we're kind of saying, see, like, this is what I'm really like. Accept me, love me for who I am. It's terrible, but love me anyway. And it kind of feels a bit like, well, we're not really accepting that part of ourselves, but we're asking them to accept it. And it also, like, it just feels weird to be on the receiving end of. I've been on both sides of this, and it's odd, you know, it's an odd sensation when somebody kind of thrusts their truth at you and then just leaves, you know. It's like they're still there, but energetically they've left because they're so bracing and so shut down, because they're actually in a fear response, because they've just given you something that it doesn't feel like a natural exchange, because of a lack of readiness to share on that level. So what are the results? What are the results of these crazy behaviors that we sometimes take part in order to feel safe, or like good humans, or playing out old conditioning, whatever reasons? What are the results of reducing ourselves, staying quiet and fawning when we actually would normally speak up, or thrusting our truth and then energetically leaving the situation? Well, the results are, number one, we waste valuable time, because what the desire is, in terms of making new connections with a view to having a relationship with someone, the desire is that you want to be loved for who you really are. Now, you're wasting time with these behaviors because you're shielding who you really are. So they can't even see who you really are, because these behaviors prevent that. And I'm not even going to go into how sometimes that's what these behaviors are for. It's like, don't look at me. They're actually deeply avoidant on some level sometimes, but that's a whole other life. So yeah, we can waste time with mismatches, and we prolong the process of others, like someone else seeing our realness and responding to that, rather than responding to our coping mechanisms, if that makes sense. So what it does is it puts off any clear decision making, because it's like, oh, I don't quite get this. Like, I felt one thing, but I'm hearing another thing, doesn't quite match, and it kind of feels confusing. So this is such a great point. So what we're actually doing is we are slowing the whole process down, which is what is being asked of us in the first place. Our bodies, our nervous systems, our feminine wants to go slow. And if we start taking part in these crazy behaviors, we're artificially speeding up the process, and the brakes go on anyway. It's just like, nope, we're not doing that. Slow down. And it prevents connection. And that's what we really, really want. We want the connection. We want someone to see us and love us for who we really are. So another result of this is that we feel bad, especially with the fawn response after the fact, like after the situation. There is always this sensation of, what was I doing? Because it's such a coping mechanism, the fawn response. It's not truth, and it can just feel a bit yuck to know that you have resorted to this coping mechanism when actually what you really wanted to do was just be honest. The third result is that you can set off an unhealthy dynamic from the very beginning. So if you do happen to pursue a relationship with this new connection, and it's based on what is basically untruth, a reduction of yourself, you being quiet when you really want to speak up, or you thrusting truth outwards kind of aggressively, that's not a healthy dynamic to continue. Although it may become the baseline if that's how you start in the connection. So there are 3 results that you probably don't want. Okay, so let's focus on what you do want. And the desire is you want someone to see you for who you really are, and you want them to love you for who you really are. And let's face it, that is what we love about people. We don't love their pretense. We don't love their coping mechanisms. We love their idiosyncrasies, and we love the way that they show up when they're vulnerable. And we love all the special things that make them them. And yet it seems so difficult to be the one to go first and be the one to be vulnerable, or be the one to kind of come forward with, well, this is my funny little human. What do you think? And it's natural. It's very natural to feel that. And it's just an indication of us to slow down, slow the process down. There is no rush here. There is no rush. So I have 3 distinct tools that surround conscious communication. It's all part of my spiral process. There are 12 tools in total, and it's called the Relationship Excellence Framework. So I just want to talk to you about one tool here, which is meta communication. And it's a way that you can help to stay in the slow and build the bridge to intimacy without kind of falling into that faux intimacy where there is a great deal of self-abandonment, and that rush to feel deep connection with someone is such a natural urge, of course, but without doing it step by step, it's like trying to build a brick wall without digging the footings, without actually having a solid foundation. And even if the wall ends up looking solid, if it doesn't have any foundation, any footings, you will be able to push it over and it won't survive. So in order to build connection and relationships that have some longevity, that have substance, that are fit for purpose, we do need to take our time, and we do need to have a look at these tools. So meta communication, what is that? So the basis of it is that it allows you to translate your truth without forcing premature intimacy. So it allows you to be able to talk about how you're feeling about how you're feeling. And I know I did an explainer video of this, I think last week. And I want to go over it again because it's such an important tool and it's a real game changer if you tend towards any of those things I mentioned at the beginning, the reduction of self in order to gain approval or to be liked, the being quiet when you would normally speak up, or the thrusting your truth forward aggressively and saying, accept me, love me for who I am, this is who I am. And coming forward in that way that feels a bit like, whoa, okay. If any of those things resonate with you, then meta communication is really going to support you. So if you think about who you really are, and you think about the other person over there, and you want to build a bridge to the other person so that they can reach you and you can reach them. Now, because humans we get weird, we just do, because of our conditioning, because of our different maps of the world, all different reasons, then it's important that we learn the language of connection and that we learn how to talk about how we're feeling and how we feel about how we're feeling, which I don't know how it sounds, but it's so important when it comes to any kind of intimacy or relationship building, that you're able to begin with this vulnerability of, do you know what? I feel weird about saying this because it makes me feel really shy. You've set the scene. You have given the other person some context. You've given them the human experience that you're having, so that they can immediately have compassion, they can relate to what you're saying before you go in with this, whatever the fact is about what is present for you right now, how you're actually feeling. You're telling them how you feel about how you're feeling. And as you do this, you're actually creating this beautiful kind of padding around your experience, and it's like the antidote to any kind of rushing or any feeling of, you know, that activation that we can sometimes get when we're in front of someone we don't know very well and we really want to say what's true, but we do feel anxious, or we feel like hot in the face, or we're getting palpitations, or whatever it is that happens to you at the prospect of going fast and deep into intimacy with someone. Actually building this structure around that can be so helpful and useful, and it can really support you and it can support them, because you're not just suddenly blindsiding them with these very deep feelings. You're telling them that actually this is a big deal to me. This, how I'm feeling, is making me feel kind of strange. And you're, in a way, your vulnerability about that is like you offering a piece of yourself and giving them the opportunity to stay. So I can stay with you in this. I can be with you in this. Or I'm not ready. I'm not ready for this right now. And they can have compassion for how you're feeling without it being any dismissal, or without it being an abandonment, or without it being a rejection. So that's why I call it meta communication, because it's like one step removed from the communication, but it's still truth, because it's still what is happening now. You're still referencing what is happening now in your internal experience. So this is part of what this helps you to do. Managing your internal experience is really important, because you're going to need that if you're going to stay present with the other person as well. So, I mean, I do think in a way, it's probably a really bad analogy, but it's a little bit like parenting, where you have to be present as yourself, but you also have to be present for this other little one. And it's not that it's caretaking, it's just that it can be difficult. It can feel hard to stay present with your own experience and stay open and present to someone else's experience of you as well. And that's why relationships are tricky. And that's why the relationship excellence framework has been designed to give you all the tools that you need. And sometimes, like most of the time, we only need 2 or 3 of them, because we got the other ones down. We're like, yeah, I'm good at that, I'm good at that, I'm good at that. And it changes. So I digress, because I can't stop digressing. So communicating with clarity, like that's a really amazing piece as well. Because if you're just really fluffy and really like unable to use language correctly, or just shut down in your throat and you just cannot express how you're feeling, then it's going to be almost impossible for the other person to understand what your experience is, or to respond accurately to it. So your clarity is essential. And the way that you get that clarity is by practice with yourself, and by practicing articulating what you're going through in all your relationships, not just new connections, not just new potential romantic partnerships. So communicating with clarity, managing your internal experience. Yeah. Again, something that is part of the self-mastery that we do for ourselves, with ourselves. And that is understanding the processes that we go through, understanding what our default settings are. Where do I normally default to? Is it into a fawn response? Do I freeze? Do I find it difficult to speak what I'm experiencing? Do I need a timeout? Like, what's your process? And then once you know your process, you can advocate for it. And the more that you explain what is necessary for you to behave optimally, to communicate optimally, the more you're setting the context for the other human, so that they can understand you and they can be supportive of what it is you need. And there is where we co-create. In that space is where we co-create, and we start building relationships that feel really, really good, where we can speak our truth and we're not held back, because we know that we're safe and we know that we're understood. And there's this word compersion, is the feeling of when someone gets you. It's like the feeling of being got is compersion. And it's such a relief. It's such a good feeling when you know and understand that somebody has really got you, as in, yeah, I get it. Yeah, I get it. I mean, that's part of the bridge. It's part of the bridge to intimacy. The third point, staying open while maintaining your boundaries. Now, again, this is a self-mastery piece, because it's about knowing yourself and knowing what you're not available for under any circumstances. I'm like, just not available for that. And once you know that, you're energetically behind it. Those things don't tend to come into your orbit, but sometimes they can, and you can act accordingly almost automatically if you know what they are. Staying open while you do this takes practice, because again, the human response is to just shut down, just close the door, just like, no, I'm not available for that, no, and close. You can stay open while standing behind a boundary and fully backing yourself in that, so that you can still make a clear decision about whether you want to remain in connection with an adjusted boundary, or whether actually you don't want to remain in connection. This all sounds really complicated now I'm saying it. It's not that complicated. And this tool of meta communication will really, really help you in all of your relationships. So the minute that you start to feel that your internal experience is becoming, it's just ramping up a bit, and it's going to get to a point where it's overwhelming. The minute that you become aware that that may happen, it's time to get meta. It's time to communicate about how you're feeling. And that does two things. So firstly, it will start to dissipate. So it will start to take the levels down a bit because you're being honest about your internal experience. And secondly, you're inviting compassion from the other party, because you're showing you're human. You're just showing like, yes, I'm a human being. Yes, I am having a human experience. And in that compassion, again, that's another major building block of the bridge to intimacy. So I hope that's been helpful. Like all these lives, I don't know actually what's come out of my mouth until I watch it back, which I will do when this is finished. My invitation to you is to grab one of the final 3 remaining call slots and come and see me and get your bespoke affirmation for effortless attracting of an exceptional relationship. What I will do with you is we'll just have a brief conversation, completely confidential. I'll ask you a few questions, and then we will identify which one of the 12 tools is asking for your loving attention. And then I will gift you a new affirmation that you can take with you in order to energetically get behind the attraction of an exceptional love relationship. I've got 3 spaces left. The calls are half an hour, and it's very much like this. You can show up in your pajamas if you want, and we have a chat. We have a chat, but you leave feeling clear, satisfied, and ready. And that's my biggest desire for you, that you feel utterly ready, that you start to feel in alignment, that you know what your next step is. Yeah, I'm going to leave the link below this live, and I can't wait to receive the little ping that tells me that you've booked. Okay, sending you so much love. Bye-bye.